Hello, everyone. Welcome to RotoWire TV Soccer. This is the transfers, the summer transfer roundup. The summer transfer roundup. And with me today, we have RotoWire.com's own Andrew Laird and Nick Pittner, the famous faces behind the bargain bin and the best 11s that you guys know and love on the website. And we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. So I want to first talk about Liverpool, guys, and Luis Suarez, as everybody knows by this point, has moved on to La Liga with Barcelona. And the main things that you've seen now is with that 75 million that they received from Barcelona, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to be the next Tottenham after they sold Gareth Bale? And specifically, is Daniel Sturridge now one of those must-own properties? And then also, what with their new signings with Ricky Lambert, Adam Lallana, Emre Can, and others. Are they really, big fantasy targets now? So I'm going to first throw it over to Laird. So what do you think? And then we'll also toss it over to Nick right afterwards. So take it away, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't know if Sturridge is now a must-own. He was pretty much a must-own last year. So I think that he's without a doubt one of the top strikers. He may even be the top striker this year. I'm sort of working on the rankings right now, but a lot of the other top guys tend to be newcomers. We'll probably get to Diego Costa later, but you tend not to see newly acquired guys come in and dominate right away. So I think Sturridge is probably one of the top guys out there. Lambert certainly sees an increase in value, but I'm not sure it's to the point where he's going to be one of the first top strikers off the board. And I think it's a huge move for Adam Lallana. I think he'll be a breakout star this year, even more so than he was last year.
And then, Nick, do you have any thoughts about anyone else breaking out on Liverpool or with Daniel Sturridge's value?
Yeah, going off what Andrew said, Sturridge finished second in the league in scoring last year, only behind Suarez. So obviously more opportunities are going to fall at his feet without Suarez in the mix. So I think his value spikes. I'd also agree that Lambert, I don't know if he's going to get as consistent of playing time as he did at Southampton, where he's been the man like his whole career. So I think there could be a slight downtick in his stock this year, especially because Liverpool is also supposedly going after Loic Remy now. So I don't think they're done in the transfer window. But that being said, selling Suarez certainly adds to their depth, which should help their attack in spite of losing one of the world's best strikers and fighters for that matter.
Yeah, he has real teeth to his attack. So do you guys think that not Arsenal, that Liverpool will play with two men up front like they did last year, or are they going to go back to one man up front?
I certainly hope they don't go back to one because we had talked about this previously. That's such a garbage way to play. I mean, they came close to winning the league with playing with two, and it's not like they were blown out by Man City. I mean, they pretty much had it in their grasp until they blew it at the end. So a huge change in strategy doesn't seem to make sense to me. We were talking before that they're now kind of being linked with Isco also. So there's plenty of firepower left there to, or if they as well as a few dozen million pounds that they can still buy some more offense. I see no reason to go back to a single striker.
Yeah, I think they'll put two up front like they were doing last year. Then kind of have Raheem Sterling floating around in the hole behind the front line. Maybe Lallana can mix in there too. They're going to have a lot of bodies in the midfield. We touched on Emre Can, although he's more defensive. So, I think there'll be two up front with Sturridge doing most of the business, and then Lambert, and if they bring in another striker, kind of rotating to partner Sturridge.
And, just to go on that, piggyback on that, do you think that there were ties to Divock Origi, the breakout star from Belgium, who, since there's a Christian Benteke jersey in the background there, someone who was filling in for him and for Romelu Lukaku, who went absent for the World Cup, except against the U.S. But Do you think that Divock Origi, if he goes to Liverpool, has value?
I think there's value if he stays. It doesn't sound like he necessarily stays there, although I'm hesitant that he'll play enough to make him, worthy of most fantasy leagues. He may be a quick spot off the bench, but I can't really see him getting a consistent spot in the starting 11. What's weird is that they made all of this money and they need so much help in defense, and they haven't gotten any yet. So it's like, they're clearly trying to outscore everyone again, and maybe they see if Martin Skirtle just scores on the opposite net that they have a title in them.
All right, so yep. Go ahead, Nick.
On Origi, he was pretty exciting during the World Cup, but he really didn't do that much last year in Ligue 1. Granted, he's 19 years old and most of the time came off the bench. He only finished with 5 goals, so if he makes the switch Prem, I think it could take a while for him to adjust. So I think he should be on fantasy radars right away if he indeed makes the move.
Cool. So I don't want to make this a Liverpool podcast, so let's switch over to another team in red. 2 of the 3 people on this podcast really do enjoy this team. I don't know why, but Alexis Sanchez has signed with Arsenal, and so has Matthew Debuchy. 2 players, Alexis Sanchez up front and then Debuchy as a defender, both of whom can have serious fantasy value in a big hurry. Do you feel like Alexis Sanchez can rival that of Sturridge as far as goal scoring with Arsenal? So we'll start with either Andrew or Nick. Doesn't matter to me.
You take it away, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, I think Alexis Sanchez is immediately going to become one of the Premier League's best strikers. If you look at world football right now, all the best strikers are South American for whatever reason. And Sanchez is coming off a great World Cup for Chile. And although I think he had 18 goals, 10 assists for Barcelona last year, he was really just pegged into that right side. And I think he'll have a lot more freedom at Arsenal. And when you have players like Mesut Ozil lobbing the ball in, I think that certainly helps his chances. So I think he could test Sturridge in terms of the goal lead.
Yeah, I straight up agree. Shocking, Mike, but they just haven't had a player like this, and with somebody like Ozil just feed. I mean, that's pretty much what everybody's expecting, just to see Ozil just feeding balls to him, since he doesn't like to shoot himself anyway. So, that's what we see, just ball going in to Sanchez, catching up with it, and finishing.
Do you guys worry at all, and we'll start with Nick on this, do you guys worry at all that the physical nature and the very strong-minded defensive teams can actually stymie him because he's not the world's biggest or strongest striker?
Yeah, that is an adjustment he'll have to make, as most players have to when they come from Spain to the Prem, because it's just nonstop attacking and certainly more physical. That being said, he is pretty quick, so maybe defenders won't get too close to him. Might be wishful thinking, but yeah, an adjustment will certainly have to be made.
I'll go on. I think Debuchy is going to be a great addition also. I mean, we saw Koscielny and Mertesacker be pretty good contributors last year, and he's certainly an upgrade over Sanya, so I don't see why he wouldn't be one of the top. I would even possibly put him in the top 5 for fantasy defenders this year, just based on how well he can get upfield, and then if he can track down Sanchez, then all to him.
Speaking of defenders, why does Arsenal hate Thomas Vermaelen?
I don't know if they hate him. Him and Koscielny, I think, are too similar to work together, because they're both very mobile, which is the opposite of Mertesacker. So I think Koscielny just beat out Vermaelen to partner Mertesacker.
the reason why I ask is, Vermaelen has proven to be a good two-way player. I mean, he can get forward on corners and he can also defend as well. We've seen it a little bit for Belgium, but just in the past, whenever he's played, he's looked good. And is he just surplus to requirements now? It just seems like he's a waste to be put on the bench and never really see the light of day.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's just like Nick said. I think he got beat out for the spot, and in that role, they don't necessarily need somebody who is going to move up. They got plenty of guys in front of them who are able to take on that role. So it's almost like they need somebody, like Nick said, to help Mertesacker, who's not exactly the quickest guy on the field.
Gotcha. So, let's move on now. Let's move across town in London to Chelsea. A lot of people moving around here, especially the strikers. So Demba Ba was just sold today. They brought in Diego Costa, who I have been on record many times saying I don't like this transaction. But I'll pass this on to you. Do you feel that Diego Costa, with his bitterly disappointing run at the World Cup, could actually be better in the Premier League than he can on the international stage?
I think it's got a shot. I think what worries me is that he doesn't have a long track record of playing like he did last year. Last year was the first time he ever scored 10 goals in a season, or more than 10. And you tend not to score 10 in Spain and then score 25 in England. It happens, I guess. Michu did it himself, but it doesn't happen often. And I think there's going to be an adjustment period there that may take a while, which isn't exactly what people want to hear. And the last thing you want is Fernando Torres to be snuck back in every so often and kind of chipping away at Costa's playing time. But I think the Fabregas edition is also pretty good. I'm probably not the best one to bring it up. Nick is openly said that Fabregas is the best player he's ever seen, I think is what he said, or maybe his favorite to watch. So he's certainly not the happiest to see him in blue now.
Yeah, so Nick, I'll frame it this way for you. If you had your pick for Arsenal, would you rather have Ozil or would you rather have Fabregas? Nick, unmute the microphone. Hey Nick, just hit the mute button. Your microphone's still muted. Can I do it? All right. It appears that Nick has been on permanent mute now. So I'll toss it back to Lairdinho. Laird, if you had your choice between Ozil and Fabregas, who would you choose?
I think I'd take Ozil now. Fabregas obviously has plenty of familiarity in England, but I'll take the younger guy. I don't think he's significantly younger, but I'll take him. He's obviously just gotten very comfortable in London now, and I think he was a little tentative at first last season. I'm hoping he looks for a shot a little more because he's in a great position to be a fantasy star this year, but he's got to learn how to take a shot instead of just trying to pass into the back of the net.
Yeah, I saw that a couple times for Germany that he had chances, and actually during the 7-1 game against Brazil, he had a prime chance, but he hit a really nice back pass to Sami Khedira for, I think it was the 5th goal. I lost track after a while, but it was an amazing pass. But you just have to wonder, does he have the confidence to actually shoot? Or either of them for that matter, but do they have the confidence to do it?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to chalk that one up to, we're already up 7-1, so I'm not gonna put this one in the back. Yeah, he's that's what it is. He seems very tentative on the attack when he's responsible for putting the ball in the back of the net, which kind of shot him in the foot a few times last season. Fabregas obviously has a little more the attack-minded set, just playing up front in the false nine anyway, mostly for Spain, but not so much this year in the World Cup.
Yeah.
But, I think it's certainly a good combination with Fabregas and Costa. I think they'll be a good duo together, but I don't know if it's red coming through that I would rather take Ozil.
Yeah, it's okay. So let's throw it back to Nick, who's now rejoined us after some technical difficulties. So Nick, Ozil or Fabregas, who would you rather have today?
I'll take Ozil. Fabregas is older, and he was good at Barcelona, but towards the end of each season he spent there, he really tailed off his production. Versus Ozil is coming off World Cup victory. I think he's 25, so 2 or 3 years younger, and they're both among the best passers in the world. Fabregas probably scores more goals, but I'll take Ozil. Especially his role is so defined at Arsenal in that number 10 role, whereas Fabregas is going to have to be competing with players like Oscar at Chelsea in their midfield shuffle. And then before I disappeared due to technical difficulties, we were talking about Diego Costa a little, and I actually think he's going to do fabulously at Chelsea. You're right, his track record isn't very lengthy, but he just seems like a guy that will work really well under Mourinho, kind of in like the Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, Diego Milito mold. And we all know Mourinho likes to play defensive. He would win every game 1-0 if he could. And I think Atletico was one of the best defensive teams in Europe last year. But the chances they created, Diego Costa would put away. So I think his role will be similar at Chelsea, and that's why I think he could make a dent on the league.
Yeah, let's hope they get the Inter Milan edition of Eto'o and not the Chelsea version of Eto'o. So one player. So we talked a little bit about Debuchy as well. I actually want to bring this back to another Chelsea Arsenal comparison. So Debuchy is a new addition, and then for Chelsea, Felipe Luis has officially signed. So as far as a fantasy asset, they both have talents going forward, and they both are well, especially on Chelsea, are on teams that are defensive minded and will get some clean sheets. Who do you think finishes with a higher slate of fantasy points?
I'd actually probably take Luis right now just because added clean sheets. I think, like Nick said, Mourinho's defensive schemes are probably more ideal for racking those up. They'll both, we talk about offensive-minded defenders, but it's still only 4 or 5 goals over the course of an entire season. So you may get a big jump one week, but it's not like we're seeing 10 and 11 goals from these guys. So it's really the clean sheets that are going to make the difference.
Yeah, I would also prefer Luis over the course of the season. Chelsea's just so solid in defense. Arsenal racked up, I think it was 17 or 18 clean sheets last year, but then they also had those games against Chelsea and Liverpool where they were down 4-0 after 20 minutes or something crazy like that, which just doesn't seem to happen to Chelsea. So I think they're a lot more stable, and for that reason I would tend to pick Luis.
Yeah, and before we move on, I just have one other fantasy-relevant player, just a question. Does Branislav Ivanovic now move to fantasy obscurity?
I think he'll be fine because if I'm not mistaken, Luis is a left back, and Ivanovic will be on the right. So if that's the case, Cesar Azpilicueta could actually fall down the pecking order after enjoying a pretty good run last year and ultimately seeing Ashley Cole leave Stamford Bridge.
So Laird, do you feel that Azpilicueta will go to the bench, or do you think that Ivanovic will be the spell for the center halves of Cahill and Terry?
I think that's probably as clear as who's going to be in goal.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of side with Azpilicueta at first, only because he cemented his spot there. He played pretty consistently for Spain in the World Cup, despite their terrible finish. But I don't know. It's a weird situation because they're both very, very good in terms of fantasy production, but only one of them is really going to play. You're not going to start seeing both of them on the field at the same time. But I might go with Azpilicueta to start, but Mourinho's able to make his or change his mind rather quickly, if it's not working. So whoever's in that spot, I think, is going to be valuable.
Yeah. And then quickly, and just a quick note on the goalkeeping. Until one of them is transferred out officially, I have no idea who's going to be in goal or what Mourinho is actually thinking. One of them does need to go because it's going to be a problem in the clubhouse. So it's like having two really good starting quarterbacks on the roster, both of whom have viable starting credentials. So it can split a locker room really quickly, and one of them just needs to go. And it's not personal; it's just business. But I don't want to make this all about Chelsea. And I don't want to make it all about Arsenal either. So let's move on to Manchester United. So you two have had a brief discussion earlier. Besides for Luke Shaw, who is playing defense for Man United next year? So we'll start with Nick on this one.
Well, that is the question. Shaw's got to be pegged in at left back, and then Laird and I came to agreement that Phil Jones will probably be in there. But then, yeah, we don't know what Louis van Gaal is going to do with guys like Chris Smalling. Is he going to bring Raphael back into the fold? Questions like that. Or is he going to sign someone? Is he going to do a three-man defense like he did with the Dutch national team at the World Cup? A lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah, we had a conversation about it, and it pretty much ended right after Shaw. What's weird is that it sounds like Patrice Evra might stay now. There was, he was pretty much joining Juventus, and then all of a sudden Conte resigned, and now he doesn't necessarily want to. Now all of a sudden he loves Manchester again. If he stays, I assume he'll play, but it would be interesting to see if he does go with the three-man back line. You can find out very quickly if you're going to get exposed that way, but it's worth a try. They need something because they clearly need to get back to, I would say, the top four, but they're not a club that looks to go for top four. They want to win the whole thing. So.
Yeah, and just about the back three. Back three teams, they also have two wing backs who need to come back and play defense as well. So if you're really going to go back three, you do need two extra pieces that have the ability to actually run back and play defense. So you actually kind of need more defensive-minded players, and that I don't think they have them. I think that would actually be a huge detriment to them if they went three at the back, because then they have to get those wing-back players, or else they either don't have any width to their attack, or they have no one. They'll leave the three guys alone on defense and just hope for the best. So if they were to do wing backs, would Luke Shaw be one of the who would be slated on the left? Who would be slated on the right to run up and down the pitch there?
I have absolutely no idea.
So they certainly have a lot of questions to answer. Do you feel that Manchester United has a chance to get back in the top four, or are they going to be mid-table again?
Well, for all I'm concerned, they can stay mid-table. That's perfectly fine with me. I really don't know what to think of Van Gaal. He's had a lot of success, but first year in the Prem could prove pretty taxing on him. I think they're one of the teams that's going to be more active in the transfer window as it closes, kind of answering those questions about their roster. But yeah, I'd certainly be surprised if they had another year or even close to last year, so I expect them to be pushing for Champions League when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'd probably peg them at, competing for that fourth spot that Arsenal gets all the time. But yeah, I mean, looking at the roster the way it's made up, you can't possibly think that they're going to win the entire league. There's too much talent on other squads for them to keep up with a full season, and that's even considering that Van Persie stays healthy for a majority of it, which is something that he hasn't been able to do for a long time.
So if I said Manchester United will finish sixth, would you say better or worse or right on? Is sixth where they're going to finish?
I'd say they finish better than that.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing.
Huh.
Not much better.
I would actually like to, if I get six as part of my piece for the win, I would actually be willing to put a little board wager on that with you guys. I'll take six and under. I think Arsenal. So we've got Arsenal, I think Tottenham's going to be better, significantly better, because Pochettino is a tremendous coach. So I would take Tottenham, then the top four from last year. So Chelsea, Arsenal, City, and Liverpool to all finish ahead of them. So am I crazy for thinking that, or do you think that Tottenham's not going to be as good because they have to adjust?
Well, keep in mind you're speaking to two Arsenal supporters. So I would agree with the same top four is going to be there, being City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. I think Everton is always great. I think Roberto Martinez is a very underrated manager. So I would put them up there, but I think United could displace one of them to finish in the top five. Maybe they displace Everton, and then Spurs is following closely behind.
Yeah, I'm not totally convinced on Tottenham, and that's trying to be as unbiased as possible. But they just, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be enough. They may go a little more defensive because Southampton was an excellent defensive squad last year, but the three main guys, Shaw is gone, or Shaw, Lovren, and Fonte were all very good, and Tottenham didn't have any of those guys. So they also dealt with significant injuries last year, so maybe that's what they can blame it on. But I'm not convinced.
Yeah, when I got off to my hot start in our ESPN league last year, it was all due to the fact that I had Artur Burak as my goalkeeper, and he was very, very cheap and getting tons of clean sheets. I think during the first 10 games of the season, or I think they only gave up like 4 or 5 goals. So it was just an incredible start for Southampton last year, and then Burak got injured. So it was a tough go of it after that for me. I had to start juggling around transfers. But is there a guy like Boric or like the defenders for Southampton last year? Do you see really high value guys on, let's say, lower level teams? I know I'm springing this on you all improv, but is there a certain player that's on a lower level team that you feel like could do a lot of damage in fantasy circles, like a Christian Benteke a couple years ago for Aston Villa?
The one that I was talking about recently was Enner Valencia, who just signed with West Ham. I think he had 3 goals in 3 World Cup games for Ecuador, and I think he's in excellent form right now, and he'll certainly be plugged right into that starting 11. So I think he could be a nice little one. The one we touted last year was Wilfried Boney, who I think also might have a good year. There's still talk that he's not going to stay at Swansea, but nobody's ponied up the money to get him yet. So if he stays there, I think he could do some damage as well.
Keeping the Swansea train of thought, I think John Joe Shelby could be in for a good year. Once he got away from Liverpool last year, he did pretty well for Swansea, and he's a younger player who's still developing, so I think he could take the next step this coming season. A striker that comes to mind would be Nikita Jelavic for Hull City. Now that he's away from Everton, where he actually started off pretty well, but once they got Lukaku and Morales and those types of players who are just flat out better, he was made expendable. But for a whole team that doesn't really light the world on fire offensively, I think he could bag a decent proportion of their goals.
Yeah, I love that pick by you, Pittner. I was actually going to go there, but I'll go with my backup pick, and it's actually someone who I think is going to be either teamed with or starting over Enner Valencia, and it's going to be Andy Carroll. As long as he can stay healthy, he has proven that he can score goals. I mean, it's like the next generation of Peter Crouch. Except he has a little bit better. He's a little bit better with his feet. But Andy Carroll has the ability with West Ham to really, be that twin towers. If it's him and Valencia, to be up front and actually score a ton of goals and be just an absolute nightmare to defend on set pieces. And do you guys think that Andy Carroll actually still has a future, a fantasy relevant future?
He makes Derrick Rose look healthy. So
that's true.
That's the only thing that's going against him. Obviously, those things can linger, but guys have been able to come back from injury. And I agree with you. Like, as long as he's on the field, he could be a great contributor. But it's such a huge question mark with him. He was supposed to be out for 6 weeks, and he was out for like 5 years. So, or at least that's how it felt. So, he came back and he started playing pretty well towards the end of last season. So, I think pairing the two of them would be a great attack. But we all know how much how much managers want to do that.
All right, guys, and I'm going to leave with one last question. It's way too early to predict it, but it's the perfect time to ask anyway. Who is winning the Premier League this year?
I'm going to go with Chelsea.
Well, I'm shocked, but okay, yes. And Nick, what about you? Who do you think?
Well, let's see. I don't think Chelsea's going to win it. I don't think Man City is going to do 2 in a row, although I would probably say they have the deepest roster. So I'm going to say Arsenal's going to win it. Off the momentum of a FA Cup victory, they've had a good summer, and I think there's a real good chemistry around the club right now, and hopefully they can come up big in the games against the top 4. But on this day, I'll say Arsenal.
I'm actually going to say Arsenal as well, and it's actually independent of how they do against the other top 4 teams. They can actually just split, just get either 3 points apiece home and away or 1-1, either or. As long as they stay at 500 against those teams, they do better against bad teams, better than any of the other top teams. They just crush the lower opponents. And I feel like they've gotten stronger this year, and their chemistry, like you said, it's going to be largely the same lineup with a couple of pieces added in. There's no major reshuffles, and no one looks old, no one looks out of place. And when they put passes together, there's no team that puts passes better together better than Arsenal. And it's mesmerizing at times. And I wish that my team played that way, but they just won't. But if Arsenal can just stay healthy, I think that they will put it all together this year and actually not celebrate finishing in 4th place when it's finishing in 1st place this time. So if I had to guess out of the 3 of us that one of us chose Chelsea and it was not me, I would have been absolutely shocked. But thank you, Laird, for the confidence. I appreciate it. And on that note, we're going to close this episode of RotoWire TV. We will catch you guys the next time. Thanks, guys.